Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Horses Advocate podcast. It is spring, and you may be listening to this in the middle of winter as a replay. I'm sorry about that. But as I record this, it is a beautiful spring day where I live and probably where you live too. There may be clouds in the sky, but you can just smell this fresh air coming, the loss of ice and snow, and just all those things that summer's around the corner. And with that, we have some increasing daylight. We have since December 21st. And with that increased daylight, the pituitary of every mare out there is starting to say, hey, it's time to get ready to have a baby. So I thought that would be a great subject, talking about making babies and delivering them. It's one of the things I started with a long time ago, way back in 1973 when I started with horses. And one of the things that I'll never forget was the day that I was on call. Basically, I was the person that the night watchman would call if there was a foaling problem. And foaling problems are called dystocias. DYS in front of any word just means there's a problem. And dystocia just means the difficult birth. And I'll never forget that day. I wasn't in vet school. I hadn't even finished undergraduate school, but I knew that this is where I wanted to be. I just loved working with babies. So the night watchman called me and said we had a problem. I went down there, and sure enough, this mare was pushing, and all I got was a foal's head and maybe a hoof. And the presentation was, instead of two front legs coming out perfectly, one leg was completely back. So it was just stuck and just wasn't coming out. So we called the veterinarian in charge. He was one of my original mentors, Dr. Steiner out of Mahopac, New York, who passed away, unfortunately, killed by a horse right after he retired. I'll never forget him and all the things that he did for me. And I'll never forget this night where he comes out and he's looking and saying, yep, it was good that you called me, but you've been inside this mare, haven't you? And he called me out. So I knew enough to be dangerous back then. I had already cleaned the mare up. I cleaned my arm up, and I went in because the vet was 45 minutes, an hour away, and this poor mare was struggling. And I placed my hand and my arm inside to feel what was going on. And my nose and the foal's nose was this far apart as I'm in there trying to reach around and trying to figure out how to untangle this puzzle. And the mare was pressing my arm, crushing it with her contractions, and the foal's nose would come out and touch mine. And I'll never forget that, because Dr. Steiner stood next to me, shoulder to shoulder, and he was 5 feet, 8, 9, 10 inches. Was 6'2" back then. And he looked at my arms and he says, your arms are longer than mine. And he taught me how to put on some obstetrical chains and how to go in there and how to place it on the foal's leg. And he taught me how to extract this foal, and we pulled it out, and the foal was saved. The mare was saved. Everything was right, except the foal had some angular limb deformities. What makes that foal story so interesting was the next day, the foal and the mare were walking around. We're trying to get the foal to exercise to strengthen the limbs. And the foal saw me from about 30 yards away. 30 yards, I don't know how many meters that is, but pretty far away. Saw me, left its mother. It's not even a full day old yet. Walked across the courtyard and came up to me because he had been looking at me and saw me and knew that I was somebody that was important. So that was the beginning of imprinting. I think long before the word imprinting became popular. But I got really hooked on delivering foals, and I made it part of my practice as much as I could. Now, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a lot of stuff wasn't really known. It was all guesswork. And if I were going to tell you one thing, if you want to snap this podcast off and move on, just write down this one note. If you want to become successful at breeding mares, you need good record keeping. You need attention to details. You need to have keen observational skills. You need to be looking at the mare and understanding what her heat cycles are, and then write that down. And you will start to see patterns. And you can click this podcast off. If you just learn that one thing, you'll become way more successful. I think most breeding programs, if they are not natural, in other words, you don't have a big field with the mares out there and one stallion and he's covering them, because that's nature's way and that works great. But if you're in a controlled situation, there's nothing better than records. I promise you. So I wanted to go over a couple of things. I don't want to talk about reproduction in its entirety because it's too lengthy a deal for a podcast. I will tell you, though, that if you're going to breed your mare, find a veterinarian who knows what they're doing and invest in that relationship, because breeding mares and delivering foals is an art form. I think that's the best way to put it. It's an art form. So yes, there's a lot of science, a lot of strategy, manipulation with hormones, palpations to figure out what cycle, what's going on, the uterus, the ovaries, tons of stuff. And with the advent of ultrasound going in there and giving us better details what are going on, blood tests, and it's still an art form. The more data you have, the better off you are. But what triggered this was there's a couple of articles, and this one was in the Practitioner from the Florida Association of Equine Practitioners, the Practitioner, issue 1, 2024. And it has two articles in here I want to go over. One is called Challenges of Chronic Endometritis with Novel Tools. Novel means new. And I thought that was great. And I thought that I would read that. They talk about mucus and biofilm disruptors. We didn't know what a biofilm was. Now it's a rage. It's the film that bacteria embed themselves in to protect themselves from the antibiotics and the other things that we use to kill the bacteria that's inside the uterus that's trying to create inflammation. So the way the mare was made, she was made to stand on all 4 feet, so the uterus is horizontal to the ground, as opposed to humans. It's vertical. And in that position, it's less, let's put it this way, in a vertical, things that get into the uterus tend to fall out, which is great. But in the horizontal, you can get some things that are trapped in there. And the worst thing is literally manure. So I know this is kind of disgusting for some of you who don't have a good queasy stomach. For all you into reproduction, you've lifted the tail of the mare a lot, and you know that the anus sits above the vulva. And sometimes that vulva, the anus gets tipped in. So if you're looking straight down underneath the tail, all right, you're seeing the anus and the vulva right here. And that's supposed to seal and prevent manure that's falling off from going in there. But as the mare gets older and has had many foals, that tends to tip forward. So I'm going to do side view. So you're looking at the mare sideways and tends to go like this. So when she poops, it can go in here and get sucked in. And that's the technical term, wind sucking. When the mare sucks in debris that doesn't belong in there. And when they are in heat, all the barriers are broken down, and it allows that contamination in the uterus, and that causes something called endometritis, which is what this article is all about, endometritis. So they go over a bunch of different techniques, and I'm not really going to go over them because that's between you and your veterinarian. This is a job for your veterinarian to come out and culture and biopsy. And I always would wait till we had a good heat. So the cervix, which is that door, if you will, between the vestibule, which is the vagina, and the uterus, which is the house, that front door opens and becomes, it opens so you can pass a pipette in there and take cultures. And I would take cultures, and we always prayed that it'd come back no organisms. And sometimes it would come back no significant organisms. Now, I don't know what that meant. We would breed them anyway, and half the time they caught, and the other half they might not catch. But if it came back with an organism, that was not good, and we would have to treat that. So they came up with some really interesting things like N-acetylcysteine. And I think, don't hold me to this, but I think it was called Afrin, and you would squirt that in your nose, and it would immediately get rid of decongestion. It's hard to find. It works really well for the first couple of times, but if you use it on a continual basis, it can lose its effectiveness. But they're using this inside the uterus to kind of clear things up and destroy the biofilm. I thought that was interesting. They had hydrogen peroxide, DMSO, and I've seen mares with DMSO given intrauterine, and of course they smell, it stinks up the whole barn. But I've always said that if I were trapped on a desert island, I would want DMSO as one of the three things, along with aspirin or bute or Excedrin, Tylenol, whatever, and probably Pepto-Bismol. And those are probably the three things that I would want. But DMSO is just amazing stuff. Then they had another thing in here, but that I didn't recognize. They have activation in identification of dormant deep bacteria. And they talked about misoprostol, which I thought was fascinating because misoprostol, of course, is being used for ulcers in horses, and they use it in the uterus. So talk to your vet about that. They have a couple things, and of course, kerosene. I mean, that's been since the beginning of time. And kerosene is interesting because it basically debrides the uterus. And I don't want to talk any more about that. There is a specific way to do that. If you don't do it right, you can burn the inside of the uterus, and you don't want that either. But they were talking about grade 3 mares. Now, grade 3 is not good. You have basically 3 grades of a biopsy. Now, biopsy, I would send in a long, I think they have a picture of it here, actually. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but that thing there, like right there are the grip, and then you have this very long thing, and right there is a basket with little, pinchers. And I would send that in cleanly and then go above rectally and push down and get a little section of the uterus lining and just go snip off a piece and send that in. And we come back grade 1, which means there's a 90% chance your mare is going to get in foal. Grade 2, which meant 50-50, and grade 3, which meant there's a 10% chance your mare is going to get in foal. And your veterinarian has to be used to help you through this, to teach you what works and what doesn't work. So breeding is very specific. You need to tease your mare so you know exactly where she's in heat. If you don't have a good teasing stallion, you have to get a veterinarian out there on a regular basis doing serial palpations and get great record keeping. Find out when the mare is going to ovulate, and that means she's going to release the egg, and the stallion has to cover her basically before that happens. And there's a lot of ins and outs. And so my talk here is so generalized that I don't really want to get into any more than that. It's easy, but it'll test your patience and create frustration. But records really help. So this next article I thought was really interesting: the induction of labor in the mare, protocols and pitfalls. Now, I love this article because I was inducing mares in vet school and soon thereafter. And I found it very easy to do when I would go to the horse farm, and there would be this person, usually a woman, who's taking care of everything, plus raising a kid or two or three, taking care of broken fences, cleaning the stalls. And her mare was supposed to have delivered last week, and she's been up for 2 weeks in a row, and her face is just completely drawn down, and she can barely stay awake as she has me out there for some routine call. And she says, I don't think I can do this much longer. I've taken time off from work. I've got to go back. I don't know what to do. So I had 3 things, which thankfully this person who's very skilled, has been around for a while, he also agrees. He says, first thing is minimum gestation length of 330 days. Now, I needed to know the exact day of ovulation, and then we would count it out. I need to confirm that we're at 330 days. But that was one thing. Second, she's starting to bag up, which just means she's starting to get milk in the udder and in the teats. What's the point of delivering a foal if there's no food in the grocery store? So you have to make sure the milk is there and ready to go. If she's starting to leak milk and she's been leaking for several days, that's another reason to go ahead and deliver this foal, get it out there, because the mare is losing colostrum, which is that first milk that has all those antibodies that protects it from life-threatening diseases. He also said elevated milk calcium levels. We didn't have it back then. So we didn't, I didn't do that, but that's really an interesting criteria. We're just learning about that, which meant that as calcium increased in the milk, it was a good indicator that the mare was going to foal very soon. You also look for the relaxation of the muscles. The vulva becomes soft and elongated. But most importantly, I'd have to do a vaginal exam, go in and feel that cervix. A cervix on a pregnant mare is tight, and you can't stick your finger in there. It just, the door's closed. If the door's closed, you don't want to be forcing the mare to push a foal out through a closed door, because then things tear, and that's the end of your reproductive life in your mare. So I'd have to go in, and there'd be like 3 fingers. It'd be soft and open. I believe they call that effacing in humans, the effacing of the cervix, as a guide for, hey, the baby's coming out soon. So then they go ahead and tell you exactly how to do it, and they give 1, 2, 3 different drugs that can be used. I'm not going to go over that here because I don't want you guys to go out there and grab some of this stuff and administer it, because that's not your job. Again, this is the veterinarian's job. But I never used the first 2. I always used the third one that they recommended. And I was always just give 1 shot in the muscle and sit back and wait. They recommend several different ways to do it: the 1 shot in the muscle, or smaller doses, repeated, or put in a bag of fluids and dripped in. So I think we overcomplicate things, but I will tell you that when you're sitting there, when I'm sitting there as the veterinarian, and I would give this shot, and they would say, okay, doc, where's the foal? I'm like, hey, hold on, this is a process. And then the mare would start pawing and look uncomfortable, and then she'd kind of buckle, and then she'd lay down, and everyone would get excited. I said, nope, not yet. And the mare would get back up, walk around, do a couple of turns, go over, eat hay. Then it would be a slow process. And it would take sometimes up to an hour for the mare to say, okay, I'm ready. And boom, out came the foal. Knock on wood, I never, ever, ever had a problem inducing labor, but I stuck to my guns. And if the criteria weren't there, I told them, no, I'm not going to do it. And yeah, I got some clients mad at me, but they were tired. They would get mad at anybody for doing anything. And I thought that was kind of funny. Then I saw another article, and this one is in the Equine Veterinary Journal, January of 2024, right? And it's called Decision Making in Complicated Dystocias. So again, dystocias is just a difficult birth. And I was pretty impressed with this because it described a case that had been reported on where the mare decided to lay down and push out a big red sac. And we all know about red sac deliveries. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you before this podcast is over. But red sac deliveries are pretty much emergencies, and I teach you how to take care of them. Well, these people did what I tell you to do, and it turns out it wasn't the placenta, it was the bladder that was coming out through the uterus. And I would know the difference, I think. I would hope I'd know the difference. They said that there is a difference that you can visually see. These veterinarians didn't see that. And this is why if you're going to have a foal, a mare deliver a foal, you need a veterinarian who knows what they're doing, who's had experience, who comes in and says, okay, this is normal or this isn't normal. So good news, the foal was delivered through cesarean section and the mare recovered. I'm going to read this paragraph. It says, it is important to not overlook the veterinarian's experience handling equine dystocias. Exactly. Those that infrequently manage these cases will not have as good a feel for timing of correction, techniques for efficient correction, and the effects of applied force leading to tissue trauma. Spending too much time trying to correct a difficult malposition and or applying a great force to do so may result in increased soft tissue damage that can lead to complications such as hemorrhage, metritis, vaginal or uterine tearing, peritonitis, sepsis, laminitis, future reproductive unsoundness, and death. The authors of this case report demonstrated aptitude and experience in managing such a difficult case quickly and efficiently. What they did was, it was a surgical suite. So when they realized that they had cut the bladder, and remember, it was inverted, so there was no urine there that they could see. They cut it and said, oh, this isn't right. There's no foal on the other side. There's intestines. They were able to get it quickly into surgery and deliver that foal via cesarean. But you're at your farm and you've got a mare going down delivering and something red starts to appear underneath the tail, you're going to freak out. So let me help you through it. There is a rule that I have absolutely no basis in facts to tell you, but it is just there to help you kind of understand just how good mares deliver foals. And the thing I always tell people is, if you have 100 mares delivering foals, 90 of them will deliver a foal without any help from you. So 90 out of 100 is pretty good odds. 90% of anything is always pretty good. It's an A on the test, right? So, or A minus, B plus, who knows? But the point is, it's a good grade, 90%. So if your mare is looking at you and chewing grass, the hay, and just like nothing's happening, and you know she's going to deliver, and finally it's like 4 o'clock in the morning and you just have to go in and use the bathroom, you can come out and the mare will have delivered that foal. That's how much control they have over it. In about 15 or 20 minutes, boom, out, done. And until you see that happen, you're like amazed. We all think of horses as being fragile flowers. They're constantly colicking or breaking down. It doesn't seem like they can do anything normally. I'm telling you, 90% of those mares can just lay down and push out a foal and get back up and be almost 100%. It's really cool. So if you like the odds, go ahead and breed your mare and don't worry about it. But for the other 10%, 9 of them are going to be simple dystocias, and I'm going to teach you how to take care of that. It's basically the 1 in 100 that are disasters, and the life of your mare and the life of the foal and the life of both of them are in jeopardy, and it's tragic, but can be avoided if you've got somebody who knows what they're doing. Before the mare foals, I recommend people talk to their veterinarian, make sure they know that they're not at a conference someplace, that they're around. I don't know of any conferences that are held during the springtime. I mean, just, it's just one of those things. You may have a sport horse vet who doesn't know anything about foaling, but almost every general practice has to deal with foalings in the springtime. And of course, in the springtime means January through July here in the Northern Hemisphere. And of course, July through January down there in the Southern Hemisphere, because it's reversed due to the sun and winter and seasons. So what do you need? You need a phone that works in the barn. If you don't have good reception, you need to set up a Wi-Fi system. You need a flashlight. You need warm water and something to tie the tail up with. And so it can be just wrapped up and pulled out of the way, and soap so you can scrub the underneath area, make sure it's good and clean before you do anything, because you just don't want to introduce bacteria inside the reproductive tract. That's why your veterinarian should be called for all of these things. But for those of you who are out in the rural areas, you know that this is the Horse Advocate. I'm trying to help people help themselves. I just want you to know that certain times it won't work. So I'm going to just briefly go over and share the screen with this one. All right, so you should be seeing the Horses Advocate. This is the home page. And I want you to go over to resources and down to topics. And of course, at any point, you can just go up to the search up here or search all topics down here and type in dystocia or delivery or foal or whatever words you want, and it should get you pretty close. But down here in horse care topics, there's something called foal delivery. And that's where I put some articles. I don't have a lot of articles that are complete. And I want you to call me on that. I really need to spend time. I just am so busy. I don't know what to do. But over here on foal delivery, I have it starred, so it'd be the first one. And it basically shows it doesn't show there, but it will show if you go into birth. Okay, birth. And this is really interesting because I have all these pictures of a local donkey. Now, don't get mad at me. It's a donkey. I get it. But it shows these are taken by the owner. And thank you. I can't even remember the gal's name. She's a small animal vet that called me out there to take care of this mare. But you can see how relaxed everything is. And you can see it's starting to open up. Her udder is full. Her teats are full. And then you start to have this clear sac. And this is normal. And this is what you like to see. Again, full teats. And you're starting to see the foal underneath this membrane. And she'll stand up and reposition. And this will still stay out. Don't worry about dirt on here. This is not a problem. I promise you. Now she's going down, and you can see a small hoof right here, right? It's a dark leg and a white hoof. And then, and if you guys are just listening to this, I apologize. Maybe this is one that you want to actually watch, or just go to the Horse Advocate and look up parturition, and you're going to see this. And you can see that there's two legs coming out. One is further ahead than the other, and then there's the nose. And everything's coming out. This is textbook case, just textbook. And they just keep coming. Two front feet. You can tell they're front feet because the sole is facing down. If you don't see a nose and the feet are facing up, it's because the mare is presenting both hind feet first. And that's really not bad. You can listen or read my blog called Shaving Cream Delivery, where my wife texted me out to the barn. I was in the middle of shaving. I had shave cream on me. I saw the foal's limbs are facing up. I said, no big deal. I pulled and put some traction on and rocked it and twisted the hips and got him out and pulled out a foal and went back in and finished shaving. So here's a foal that just came out. Notice the hind legs are still inside the mare. The mare has flipped over. So in the process of delivery, she's laying on her left side, but when she actually delivered, she's laying on her right side. That's normal. Don't worry if a mare gets up and half the foal is hanging out and she's repositioning. Don't do anything. Everything's fine. This is normal. Don't worry about it. The foals come out. That clear sac has been left on the foal. The foal is wet and membranes are red, but don't worry about that. Oh, I think that's out of order. Okay, sorry. And you can see the hind legs are still inside the mare. And what's really interesting is if you can use your imagination, the mare's head is way up over here. And notice how the foal is delivered face down to curve around. So as soon as the foal is delivered, the first thing that foal is going to see is mom's face. And mom's face can turn around and see the foal. So this quiet time where there's some nickering and stuff, this is just the mare and the foal connecting. And leave it alone. Do not get in there and interfere with this. It's so important. And the foal will struggle and pull itself around. You can see how the foal is moving over the hind legs, and mom's sitting there just saying, whoa, this is awesome. And finally, here's the foal all wet. And she'll get up and start licking it and nipping it and doing all sorts of things. And unlike humans, this foal is going to stand up pretty quickly. There it is, getting up, trying to get up, and finally he's up on all fours. And that just blows my mind every time I see it. And there it is the next morning, all dry and beautiful looking. I just love this foal. And nursing, beautiful, just nursing. So that's what I wanted to show you there. But let's talk about the other things that can occur. All right. So in this foaling, I've got something called elbow lock. And elbow lock, I did this video back in 2007, if you can believe it. That's like, and it's 2024. So it's well over 10 years old, but you need to play this video to understand what elbow lock is. But of those 9 dystocias that you can actually help, I told you that the mare was coming out. Let me unshare this for a second. That the foal's coming out of the mare with one leg, another leg, and a nose. So there's one leg a little bit further forward. It could be either one. And this is normal. It's just like if you're on the side of a pool and you're diving in, you put both front hands out and you dive in, and that's how a foal is delivered, just the same way. But on occasion, I'm going to rise up here. One arm can be back, and see how my elbow is bending back? So I've got one leg further out, but one leg is further back, and my nose is a little bit ahead of that. So you can see one leg and here, and because this elbow is blocked, it blocks the delivery of the foal, and the mare will be grunting and grunting. And yeah, you can wait for your veterinarian to come out, but you can also just place your hand right on the foal's forehead and push it back while pulling that leg forward. So here's the presentation. Just press the head back and pop it forward. And that's what this video is all about, that I did a long time ago with a whiteboard in my barn in 2017. Or was it 2007? Yeah, it's 2007 that I made that. It describes it. It's called elbow lock. So just go to thehorsesadvocate.com and type in elbow lock in the search, and it should take you there. So that's 9 out of 10 difficult deliveries is usually that. It could be 8 out of 10, but it's a high number of them, and it's fairly common. And that's why the mare will get up and reposition to throw the foal back in and bring it out. But you can kind of help that foal deliver, and the mare will be grateful. Just get that elbow unlocked and then walk out. Let her go on, stay out of the way. So many people want to interfere. They go in there, the old British thing of going in there with towels and drawing the foal, you know, unless you have wind blowing through the barn, which you shouldn't, and the stall is a mess and filled with manure, which it shouldn't be, the foal will do just fine. Another thing I want to go over is, I love all this, red sac delivery. So red sac foal delivery, again, you can look in the search bar, just put in red sac, and you're going to see this one that I did. It's a video that shows the placement of the foal that's inside a sac that's clear and light blue. And then that unit is inside another membrane that is dark red. And that is placed inside the uterus. So it's like the egg inside the egg inside the egg. You've got the foal inside a clear, translucent, easily torn membrane. That's why the foal, when it gets delivered, can just easily just pop through there. And then that's inside a thicker membrane that attaches perfectly to the oh, good grief. Sorry, everybody. I was supposed to share the screen and I didn't do that, but that's okay. You're all listening. I thought I was sharing the screen there, but I wasn't. But red sac delivery, and I'm telling you what's going on. So you have the foal inside the translucent light blue sac that's inside the red sac, and the red sac is intimately glued to the inside of the uterus. And that's how the blood and oxygen and food comes from the mare through her uterus into that thick outer membrane. And from there, it coalesces into an umbilical cord that goes up into the umbilicus of the foal. And that's how they get all their nutrition. And the reason I describe that is if during the delivery, that is separated prematurely, the foal is going to not get enough oxygen and possibly even die. It'll suffocate, basically. So in the normal course of events, when she lays down, she's going to break water. And this happens to humans and mares too. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. What's happening is the foal is inside that light gray sac, and then that's surrounded with fluid that is inside the dark red sac that's pressed up against the uterine wall. And that fluid is, it's called amniotic fluid. It's got a lot of things in it, including some waste from the foal. The foal is going to poop and pee right from the beginning, and it's just got to go someplace. So that's called the water of birth. And you've all seen TV shows where, oh my God, it's coming in. Oh, and then there's water everywhere. She broke her water. You got to rush her to the hospital. That's what's happening. So when the foal starts to deliver and come out, that thick red sac should stay attached to the uterus. And then there's this one spot called the cervical star, which is where the thick membrane is pressed up against the cervix, and it doesn't have any red spots or red marks on it. That red is like a deep, dark red velvet texture that attaches all through the uterus, except where it's up against the cervix. And where it is, it's going to be no red, and they call that the cervical star. And when the foal comes up against that, it tears it and breaks water. And all the water comes out. And then that's when you see the foal with the light blue membranes coming out with the hooves and the nose inside of that. And the foal easily can break that membrane. It's not a big deal. That's normal. What happens in a premature separation of that layer of placenta is the whole placenta is being delivered with a foal. So if it were allowed to occur without any intervention, it's possible to come out and see a red sac that's fluid filled, that has another membrane, that has a dead foal inside of it. Because the only way the foal can breathe under all that is through mom's blood exchange, through the umbilical cord. And if that separates slightly, you're going to get decreased oxygen to the foal, and there's a good chance the foal can become what's called a dummy foal, which means its brain starts to have problems functioning because of lack of oxygen that's coming in there. So a red sac delivery is an emergency. So if you're out there diligently watching your mare and you see her go through the stages and she's going up and down and you know that she's going to deliver, and she starts to push out and you see this red with a pale spot coming out, the cervical star coming out, that is a red sac delivery. Yes, you can get on the phone. You can call your veterinarian. If your veterinarian can get there in 5 or 10 minutes, first of all, that's fantastic. Second of all, it may be too late. So fine, get on the phone and let your vet know that you're having a red sac delivery, and that vet hopefully can help you talk you through this, because if you haven't done it before, you might become like nervous. But in your kit with a flashlight and a tail wrap, at this point you should have the tail wrapped and pulled out of the way and clean that area. But now forget that. Forget all of what I just said. You really don't care. You don't have time for all that. I know deep inside of you, you want to do all the right things, but if this foal is in a sac that's being separated from the mother's uterus, it's being suffocated right in front of you. So the only thing you need to do is you find a pair of scissors that's in your kit that you've got ready, and you take this red sac and you snip it. Now, you could take a knife and stab it, and that's fine. But in your exuberance, you may stab the foal, and that's not good. If you are cool, calm, and collected and want to take a sharp pointed knife and pierce that just a little bit, just make a puncture, the water's going to come flying out. Don't stand right behind the mare. Stand off to the side when you do so it goes flying by you. But you only need to open it up maybe an inch, 25 millimeters, 2.5 centimeters, just enough to get your 2 fingers in there. And when that happens, you take your 2 fingers and you just open up, you just tear, you just pull it, and all the water is going to come out. And all you have to do is get out of the stall, because the mare, as she pushes, is going to push the foal through that hole you just made. And she's going to deliver a normal foal. And you basically saved its life. If you're not attending, if you're, back home sleeping, there's a good chance that the mare will deliver either a dummy foal or a red sac, and the foal's dead inside. So if you have a red sac delivery, just snip it with a pair of scissors, or lightly just pierce that and get the water coming out, and just tear it with your fingers, and you'll be fine. You don't need to be slicing and making a slash or doing everything, because you're going to get somebody hurt, the mare, the foal, or you. So you just want just a little poke and then tear with your fingers, and you save the mare, or save the foal. I don't think there's anything else I want to go over here, mainly because I wanted to keep this kind of simple. There are tons of things that you want to look for. You could tear, the mare could tear, she could retain placentas. A retained placenta is something you definitely need to call your veterinarian out for, because if she delivers the foal and then this big sack of fetal tissues is hanging out from the mare and is still hanging out, 10 hours later, there are ways to handle that. And it's important to find somebody who knows what they're doing. You can do a physical separation. You can fill the uterus up with fluids and try and press it out. You can give medications. They're constantly trying to figure out a way, because you don't want to leave any placenta in there, because the placenta dies. And when it does, it sets up a reaction that could cause laminitis in your horse, regardless of insulin resistance. And I don't know if they've related it to horses with insulin resistance, but a retained placenta is something you do not want to have, because the mare is going to suffer from that. A ruptured uterine artery, that's where the mare is just standing there looking at you, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden she acts colicky, lays down, and she bleeds out inside of her. There's no blood outside, it's all of inside of her, and that's just not good. If you see the foal nursing, and when the foal comes out, they're going to have milk all over their face. They're just slobs. But if you see milk coming out of the nostrils, that's a medical emergency. That means that there's a cleft palate. So the milk that's going in the mouth is going up into the nostrils and coming out the nostrils. As long as it's coming out of the nostrils, that's great. But as soon as it goes into the lungs, the foal's dead. So that's not good. And of course, it's really important to know that the mare's milk is the first milk is filled with life-saving proteins called immunoglobulins. Or maybe you've heard of that, measuring titers to see if your horse is vaccinated. That's the immunoglobulins you're looking for. The milk is filled with that. That has to get into the foal within the first, I always say 12 hours. You can go out 12, 30, or 24, 36 hours, but the gut in a newborn foal will let any protein through, which is what an immunoglobulin is. And in a short period of time, like 12, 24, 36 hours, it closes and doesn't allow those large proteins to come through anymore. And if they can't get those immunoglobulins from mom's milk, then the foal won't be protected against the diseases that are out there, and the foal will become sick and die. It's called failure of passive transfer. It's in every species of mammal, including you and I. The first milk of mother is important, but it's critically important in horses. It's just really critically important. So there you go. I have other things in there: fetal monsters, fetal malformations, all sorts of things. There's just so much. I can't get to it in one setting here. I think this overview of delivering foals is important. I think in breeding, you just know that you need great record keeping, that the normal cycle is 21 days, 7 days in heat, and 14 days out of heat for a total of 21 days. That's the normal. And let your vet show you how to get the mare pregnant, and then do pregnancy testing just to make sure she's staying in foal. And then watch at 330 days, 340 days, out comes this beautiful foal, 342, something like that. And if everything goes right, which 90% of the time it will, you're going to say, wow, that was easy. Why doesn't everybody deliver her mare? Trust me, I'll never forget the first frozen semen I did for a client. She decided to ship in frozen semen for her 3 horses, and all 3 caught and delivered foals. She thought I was a genius. The breeder of the stallion thought I was a genius. I was going to be walking on water in no time at all. But then we tried to get them all bred back with a foal by their side, and not one of them took. It is a very it's head banging, frustrating, and you can do all the work and spend all the money and still come up empty. But if you do get them bred and they do carry to term, it's really imperative to be there for the delivery of the foal. It really makes a difference because you can stop two things: elbow lock and red sac delivery. But otherwise, set up a good relationship with your veterinarian, take them out to dinner, buy them coffee, whatever it takes. But in the fall, when things have died down and in winter is upon yourself, spend some time with your vet going over everything. Invite them to give talks and go over every possible thing that can go on, and get yourself prepared. Know that nature's been doing this for millions of years. You can't screw things up, but you do have the mare in a foal or in a stall, and sometimes things don't go right. Anyway, that's what I thought I would do on the spring day. It's a gorgeous spring day here in Florida, meaning it got to about 75 degrees. Flies aren't bad yet, but hold on, that's coming pretty soon. All right, thanks for spending your time with me. Please go ahead and pass this on to other people. Say that he babbled on a lot, but there's some good gems in here, and you should listen to the end. I appreciate that a lot. And that's it. So I'll see you next time. Thanks, Doc T.
Hey everyone, Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There's two reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others. And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. Thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.